this is the book. I thought, let me plug it in. It's called The Human Connect. It was, thank you, Christian. And I have a story for you also, how we connected. So as Christian has already given a whole background, so for me, I'll just tell you why the book came in and what I believe in. And for those who said, how many of you are comfortable with networking? Can you show your hands up? Okay. And how many of you are obviously shy? Their hands are not up. Well, so there are three things which they don't teach, I feel, in business school. One is mindfulness, second is happiness, and third is networking. And when I was looking at the word networking, and this was during, I've been living that life of mine, but during COVID time, I had three daughters, Prerna, Payal, Simran. They're been students. So Simran is with Karan Johar, she's an associate director. Payal is an MD anesthesiologist. And Prerna is working with Unilever. She's the eldest one as an assistant brand manager for brand Vaseline. So they said, Dad, you've been always living, talking about networking, etc. Why don't you write a book? So this book came about during COVID times. So मैंने लिखा पूरा and all that, and Prerna used to edit the book for me and etc. And then finally, after I wrote the book and I was about to send it for publishing, she only said, but Dad, इसमें vulnerability कहाँ है आपका? Why are you not saying that you were... I used to tell them in school I was a shy boy, etc., etc. And then I learned it over a period of time. So otherwise you are saying, you know everything. I said, ठीक है. I went back and I started thinking, and I think Mehak before they said, go back to your story and internally. Then I went back and I was in Don Bosco school and I realized, and in school, honestly, you heard about Ravi Shastri, he was in my same class, but I was a very shy boy, backbencher, never used to talk. खाना separately डब्बे में अलग खाता था and all that, and then eventually I realized that I'm missing out and I need to, then I after that joined classes called Nazareth Academy. At that time they were communication skills, etc., and then worked on myself, and then I put it all in the first chapter to show vulnerability. And when I showed my daughter, said, Dad, aisa ho nahi sakta, how can you be like that? I said, you only told me that talk about it. Anyway, so that book took birth, the publishing book, during that time. I recently launched it about 4 months back, and it was launched at the hands of the governor of Maharashtra and Rajkumar Hirani, who's a famous filmmaker, I think one of the best storytellers and filmmakers. And as Krishan said, what is the thing in the Western world? So what is different in my book? The world, when I looked at it, how many of you all have heard about Dale Carnegie? Heard about the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? Okay. Any other book comes to your mind in networking? Just show of hands and if you know the name of the book. Which one? How to Talk to Anyone. Anything else? There are several others, but Dale Carnegie, and I still read that book because it's one of the best books, most simple books written from the heart. But what I realize in the Western world, and all of us follow networking in a transactional manner. कि उससे मैं मिल रहा हूं, I meet somebody, what can I get from that person? That's our inner human DNA. But the way I live my life, and others, I said, no, let me come out with a point. It's in giving that you receive. We have to change the mindset from a transactional one to a giver's one. And I will give you, learning from Mehak, 3 stories on how I've done that and personally. So first of all, Raju Hirani launched my book at Otters Club 3 months back. And why did he come? He never goes to any event. He will, he's a shy guy in that sense. He's not in the media. The reason why he said, and he's written the foreword in my book, The Human Connect. So there is a story for that. About 7 to 8 years back, he got my number from somebody, and I'm friendly with a lot of consulates. So he had one of his team members in this production wanting a US visa urgently because her father was looking for some cancer treatment opinion in Sloan's Kettering Hospital in USA. And during that time, they were not getting an appointment. And he knew that I had some connects. Fast forward, called me, and then he connected with me, and he said it's a medical ground. So at that time, the head of the visa department in the US consulate, I told him, send me a mail, and I forwarded, and the job got done. And he flew it, and in fact, it was done on the weekend when even the consulates are not open, and the person could fly to meet the doctor appointment on Monday itself. Post that, and he's written that in the book, I forgot about it. I never reached out to him, nevertheless. And we met after a few years in a party. Then we became good friends. So what he mentioned is, just because I did something, I did not stay in touch for मुझे ये फायदा करना है, ये करना है, and that's why we became friends. So there was no expectation, there was no agenda. That is story number one. He's become a good friend, came to launch my book, and we're doing some projects together. That's number one. The second story is about President Obama, how I was in the same room as President Obama. So many years back when he was in power, his classmate and his roommate was visiting India, and in Mumbai, the US consulate had thrown a dinner in his honor. And it was at Taj Lands and in one of the Indian restaurants. And there was a small room, I mean, it's like a round table seated dinner. There were about 12 of us, and I happened to be next to him. And his name is Vinay Tumalapalli. He's an Indian American from Hyderabad. And not only was, as I mentioned, he was in his college, he was his classmate. And then while I was talking to him and I said, sir, what do you do? This, that. I knew obviously what he does. Where are you coming from, etc. He said, I'm from Hyderabad. My wife is from Northeast, etc. And that time, those were not Netflix days. So I immediately asked him, have you seen this movie, Mary Com? He said, no, I don't even know what it is about. I told him it's about the boxer, you know, full story about Mary Com in a nutshell. He said, oh, it's very interesting. I wish I can give it to my wife to watch it. So got over, the dinner got over, I was going back. And when I started going back, stay in Bandra, so wo zamane mein bakde mein na, that DVDs bikte the. You know, so I stopped, I told my driver, chalo. And while I was going from Taj Lands, I saw this one of the bakras and I told him, bhai sahab, aapke paas ye Mary Com ka DVD hai kya? He said, hai. The princely sum of some 100 rupees. I picked it up. I went back to Taj Lands and I went to the concierge because I didn't know his room number. And they don't give room numbers for such VIPs. And I put it in an envelope. मैंने अपना नाम लिखा और card भी staple किया. And I said, and with obviously I put my mobile number there also. And I gave it. Again, and he was supposed to leave next day in the night. Next day, about 11:30 in the morning, I get a call. And it was an unknown number. And he said, this is Vinay Tumalapalli speaking. So I said, oh sir, how are you and all that. He said, no, the fact that you thought about it and send me this book, I wanted to appreciate and thank you for that. Okay, I said, no, it's my pleasure, privilege, etc. After that, about 6 months later, I'd gone to US, Washington, DC. They have a big program called the Select USA, which is all about investment forum, etc. And that time, President Obama was addressing a larger audience, couple of thousand people. And there, and because Vinay was his classmate and he was also one of the great speakers over there, and they were having a private dinner meeting also where President Obama was sitting, but very few selected guests. And he saw me and he told me, come on the side, Vinay Tumalapalli, and he told me at so-and-so time, at so-and-so thing, in this particular thing, only for VVIPs, there is a dinner, and he called me. So I managed to sit in the same room as President Obama. And again, so that is a story I love sharing because a small gesture of mine without agenda, without anything, landed me to be in the same room with the most powerful person in the world. My last story today, because we have a limitation of time, is more on the, as he said, I do a lot of work on medical, Christian mentioned, is about medical and charitable philanthropy. So I am part of an incoming president of a Rotary club called Rotary Queen's Necklace. And I'm also, there is a hospital in Sion, near Sion Hospital. It's a private hospital called Lion Tarachan Bapa Hospital. So about 4 years back, I was sitting in a meeting because I'm in the advisory team of that. And they said, listen, we are looking for somebody to fund and we want to start a cardiac unit. Cardiac means where they do angiography, angioplasty, etc. And would you know, they had the infrastructure, they have the medical team, but they did not have the funds. I thought about it. Again, somebody else mentioned, I listened properly. And I went back to our Rotary board team and I said, listen, aisa project ho raha hai, Bill ka project hai, they're doing a lot of good work. All I want you to do is, because we knew we have the funds, and there is something in Rotary called the Global Grants, where you also get funding. So combine that, all I did was convinced my core team to have a meeting with the Lions Tarachan Bapa Hospital. We sat, it took 15 minutes, and they were convinced that this is the right thing, and that translated to $1 million project which was contributed. Now imagine it was about 7 crores at that time contributed, and today that hospital, at today also we do the largest amount of heart surgeries for the poorest of the poor people, and even angiography is done at 5,000 rupees. So, so somebody asked me, "Terko kya fayda hua? What did you get out of it?" I said, "No, this is where my moral and my subject in this book is. It's in giving that you receive." So when you do selfless acts like this, and when you give it from a giver's mindset, your vibration changes, your energy gets better, and you earn a lot of karma. And to that, there are a lot of other things. I don't want you to get philosophical here, because you all are students, you all are youngsters, you all have a career path, it's a competitive world. I want to share with you 2 frameworks which I have put in the book, which practical tips, and post that I will probably take 3 or 4 questions and you all can think about it. Any of you all, either it's a career, or you all have a startup, or you all are looking at some opportunity which you all are having a challenge with, and we'll do a live thing on how to solve that problem. Because in this world, earlier they used to say there are 7 degrees of separation. According to me, there are 2 degrees of separation. And if you connect well, it happens. So I'll give you my first framework. I've called Blinks. BLINQS. The B is body language. When we speak to somebody, the body language is very important. आजकल के ज़माने में क्या है, मैं कृष्ण से बात कर रहा हूँ, but I'm looking at the other person, or I'm looking at her. So even if you spend 2 minutes, or we are looking at a mobile phone, that is very disrespectful. So body language, eye contact is a very, very important factor. We miss it. But when you are communicating, like Piyush is there, when I'm talking to Piyush, whom I met from Wellinger College, and I'm speaking to him, I should look at him in the eye, even if it's for 2 minutes. That's very important from a communication standpoint. Okay? And listening. All our earlier speakers have said one of the greatest thing is listening. Because, and in Indians, it's not in our DNA to listen. I had that problem also. Khatam kar raha hai, uske pehle we are finishing that, he's saying something and we don't even know, and we are preempting and we are finishing that conversation. So we have to be active listeners, and listening is a skill. You have to learn about it, see videos about it, and I think listening is you're also respecting that person. You're listening to earlier Mehak, when I was listening to her, I was actually making notes in that. So what, I've written a book, author, so what? A student of life mindset, there is that curiosity, you have to listen. So listening was another thing. I in the Blink is more of investment of your time and energy in a relationship. N is remembering names. How many of you all have a problem with remembering names? Hands up. I think absolutely. And it's going to get worse because of so much of information, Instagram, then social media, we are listening to YouTube, watching YouTube, Netflix, XYZ. Name is going to be but there is a technique I've written in my book, otherwise कोई खरीदेगा नहीं, वो पढ़ना पड़ेगा आपको. And उसमें लिखा है name को कैसा याद रखना. It is to pay attention, you have to connect. There are certain techniques, and again, you don't have to remember everybody's name. Those names you want to remember. Q in the Blinks is quality versus quantity. So let's say आज ये रूम में 300 लोग हैं. पहले ज़माने में, at my earlier age, when I was a rookie, I used to walk into a room of 300 people and use that actual way of networking. I used to print 400 visiting card, सबको जाके कार्ड देता था. वो आदमी ने बात किया नहीं किया, he's met me or no, I've not even looked at his eyes, no connect, no body language, no nothing, no listening. I'm just, guess where all the cards went? To the kachre ka dabba, obviously. So quality versus quantity. You don't, in today's room, let's say you all have to, and when you all go for certain sessions for your job or for your career or for a conference, you don't have to meet everybody. Decide to meet 8 or 10 people, but have quality conversations, meet them, whatever else I mentioned about. If you do that, then you're building a conversation. And out of that quality versus quantity, why I say that applies to a lot of things in our life. And 10 ko mile, 20 ko mile, 10 say you decide you want to stay in touch with, and 5 you'll finally want to build a lifelong connect, depending on the vibe, conversation, mindset. So that is quality versus quantity. And S is staying in touch. And many people, after a couple of drinks and a lot of other conversation, blah blah, sab bolte are, don't worry, ho jayega, aapki factory lag gayi, and tomorrow, and you also mention, oh, my daughter is, let's say, looking for admission in the Atlas. You'll say, oh, I know Indu Shani very well, don't worry, tomorrow morning aapka kaam ho jayega. And after that, when you follow up next day morning, that guy is not even, responding on your message or whatever. So stay in touch, what you commit, stay in touch with the people you want to stay in touch, and please do not spam their boxes. Don't send them good morning messages, ye, wo, religion, falana, dimka, all politics. You do not need to do that. You can restrict that to your college and school groups. Please don't do that to everybody you meet. And stay in touch. And there is another thing. Try to those you want to stay in touch with. Do that within the next 24 to 48 hours. And all you have to do is send a nice message. आजकल आप Facebook में message भेजते हो, या इंस्टा में भेजते हो, या व्हाट्सएप में. Nowadays visiting cards are almost over, so you take a WhatsApp number and you stay in touch by saying, it was a pleasure meeting you, is there anything I can do for you, or while I met you I heard that you're looking for some great safari experience, this is the contact I have in Ranthambore, please free, or this is a link I looked at which is great in thing, or you're looking for a great storyteller, this is the link of Mehak, please look at it. So this way you are adding value after meeting that person. So staying in touch. So that's my Blinks formula, which I mentioned. And I can't say it's patented because as soon as patented is a scientific term, I can say I've copyrighted it. And my second one is SIDE, very simple. S is social intelligence, which is we have to be socially intelligent, we have to meet people, we have to have a certain etiquette when we have that social things to do that. I is you have to be intelligent enough to be there. And according to me, D is the digital intelligence. So in today's world, I think this crowd doesn't require to be in that sense digital intelligent, because all of us are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, we know how to use Zoom, we know how to use so many gadgets, etc. So the digital intelligence is there. And the last, according to me, and the most important one is E, which is emotional EQ, which is empathy. And as youngsters, I have raised 3 daughters. I know I meet their friends. I meet a lot of youngsters. I go to college talks. One of the things I think the younger generation is missing on, and I think, so the EQ is going to be important, and is we overthink. I'll raise it. The younger generation overthinks. They're isolated. हमारे जमाने में आज भी honestly I go to my friend's house, घंटी मार के मैं अंदर जाता हूँ, कैरम खेलता हूँ, ये. But today's, even when I have to go to my daughter's bedroom, I'll say, Prerna, is it a good time to meet you inside, because she's probably working on a project. So you have, and the times have changed. So today that EQ is very important, that empathy is very important. Empathy can only come, and I mentioned earlier, speakers had mentioned that you have to be sensitive to the needs of a person. And so the younger generation, which all of you all are here in the room, most of the younger generation, because you all are surrounded by Insta screens, etc., so there are no mentors. There are few mentors we have. Even the parents sometimes used to be mentors, but they are not, because they are busy with their own lives and their own challenges in every family. So the SIDE formula is EQ. When you put yourself as an empathetic person in somebody else's shoe, it's not about yourself. Going back to the same principle, it's not about yourself, it's about others. When you do that, according to me, and you incorporate 20% of what I mentioned in my book, and again, 2 things about my book. It's a 19 chapter. Each chapter is not more than 4 pages. Again, I learned from my daughter. She said, Dad, pakana mat jada. Short is sweet. Today's generation, the Insta generation, has a very, small mindset in terms of there is so much information, so, and there is instant gratification. So I've kept it very readable. And on end of each chapter, I put all the mantras also, what they can, you can say. So this is what I have put. And if you follow that, I can promise you, you will, if you humanize your relationship, you will become a human magnet, and it will open doors, whether it's for your career, occupation, entrepreneur, you have a startup, magical doors will open for you. With this, I'll pause. I can see Christian has already stood up. Maybe it's tea time, and I'm happy to take any question on this subject.
That's what I've stood up for. I'm going to go in between, pick up a shy person and make them uncomfortable. No, I'm not doing that. Any questions?
Any questions of the challenges which you have? And there are a lot of introverts I've met who said, I'm an introvert, I don't know how to solve that.
Yeah. Uncomfortable people, come on.
Yeah, please. How many times you have met the person the first time and they have asked you for a favor? Will you return that favor? इसने आपको आज ही मिले हो, कल बोल रहा है अरे मुझे ये चाहिए, will you? I have seen 99% will not revert. So staying in touch ka formula is, if you, and let's say that person you have met and you have stayed in touch, you have, it's like a fertilizer, nurturing that thing. So once you do that, and after a couple of months, you're staying, you had coffee with that person, you build that relationship, and then you ask for a favor. Or I'm not saying don't ask for a favor, ask for a favor. And second thing, favor के लिए दूसरा चीज है, for maybe couple of years. Okay. And actually, when he was introduced, somebody told me and he said he's a human connector or something. And I actually feel at a young age, he is understood that. Why? Because we met. I called him once for my birthday party. He had come, met people, etc. And he stayed in touch. All along, he has sent me messages. Recently, about a couple of months back, he had all these artist singers come into some bungalow in Juhu. And he said, Manoj, can you get me 25 signed copies of your book? He paid for it and give it to each one. So what is he doing? He's actually being a giver. He's actually, that today is told me, would you come as a speaker? I happily accepted it. So the human connect was invest, Christian, I was talking about you. Invest in that relationship. If you do that, the people will go out of its way. Or आप किसके लिए कुछ करते जाओ, सामने पूछेगा, अरे what can I do for you? It is natural. And in the law of karma, we believe in, we talk about circular economy, etc., etc. If you do these things, it will open up doors anytime, any place. And as I mentioned, it's 2 degrees of separation. And I can have a separate masterclass on how you can use your LinkedIn, because you all are at an age and time where Facebook is time pass for your own friends, Insta mein jo ho raha hai, influencer. For your career and all that, LinkedIn is the key. But you're leaving a digital footprint. You cannot talk about your food blogging in LinkedIn, etc. You have to focus on your career, talk about your knowledge, talk about your position of strength, etc. That's a separate subject altogether. But all of you go out of here. So in last closing, I would say, everybody knows everything. Who you know is more important than what you know. Otherwise, for knowing other things, ChatGPT is always available. Thank you.